history and just learn who Bejamneeeeen is.
Man, I hope the mic picked that up well.
I hope so too. That might be the cold open. You never know. Hello and welcome to Runnah, running on Cape Cod, Massachusetts and beyond. I'm Juliana, your host. Again, here I am. Welcome back. This week I have my friend and also ultramarathon runner and recent Cape Cod Marathon finisher, Mr. Ben. Tell me why did I forgot your last name?
Well, there's a lot of mystery about how to pronounce it, to be honest.
No. My brain just fully forgot your last name.
That could very well be, but either way, there's a lot of mystery about how to pronounce it.
That was actually a question I had for you because, again, as I was telling you a moment ago, I rewatched the video of you finishing the marathon multiple times, and I think I said Zamore. Zamore? Is it
Zamore is how I would pronounce it.
Okay. So
absolutely.
But
that's different than what my parents might choose, and it's different than what I might choose talking to a telemarketer over the phone.
I mean, the telemarketer over a phone is a completely different scenario, you know.
Sure.
But that was actually a legitimate question I did have for you, because I was like, did I pronounce his name wrong when I was announcing him at the finish line? Does that really actually matter? Because the real point was that I screamed, Bejamneeeeen!
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, as I was just saying to you, my one regret is not running over to give you a high five while you did it. I was so focused on the finish line that I didn't really tune into what was going on around me.
Yeah, because someone may or may not have run some spicy miles a little bit earlier in the race.
Yeah, no, I thank Cam for that. That was awesome.
And his really nice bouncy hair. But before we get too far into that,
Cam's bouncy hair.
Cam's bouncy.
For clarification.
Cam's bouncy hair, not Ben's. But as you can tell, everyone, if you're watching on a visual medium, Ben does not have long, luscious hair.
No.
Cam, by other means, does have long, luscious hair at this point.
It's the only way I can deal with the sweat is just keep it short. You know, make it easy to clean.
It's kind of a good way to keep it, you know. But welcome, Ben. Excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Why don't you give people just an overview? Let's just start out with your running history.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in running? Because what we're eventually going to build up to, for all you lovely listeners and watchers out there, viewers, Ben is an ultramarathon runner and has run, what's the longest distance you've run?
It's debatable. The satellites definitely got cut off by the mountain range, but it could have been 50 to 56 miles.
Somewhere between. We'll give you the benefit of a doubt. We'll say 56.
My GPS measured 62. But
Or we could say 62.
There's no way that's accurate.
We'll say somewhere between 55 and 60 miles.
Yeah, I was out there for a long time in the woods.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah, over like a 24-hour-ish period of time.
This year it took me 2 hours longer. It was about 24 hours. I did it in a little, maybe half past 22 hours the first time.
Oh, wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, as someone who's the furthest they've ever run consecutively is just a regular marathon, you know, 26.2 miles, I've not ventured into that territory yet.
Look, I mean, anybody who's ever warmed up for a marathon, as we'll all tell you, will qualify, is technically an ultramarathon runner.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. And I was thinking about this, and we've had this conversation before, too, where if you've run any major marathon, you end up walking somewhere between like 1 to 2 miles to the starting line, and then at least like another 1 to 2 miles afterwards.
Yeah, I'm just walking my miles in the middle of the race.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you take a detour. Sometimes there's like a Dunkin' Donuts or like a nice little like sushi shop, or maybe there's like, I don't know, something you want to stop and look at, take a picture with.
You know, the last time I took a detour was my high school graduation. I was so far at the back of the line that I was actually in town, like away from the stage. I went into a shop and bought a muffin and ate it on the way to the stage. You know, eating on the trail is half the battle.
Yeah, it sounds like high school graduation really prepared you for being a trail runner.
It was a delicious muffin. I'm glad to be here. You know, I'm having a great day.
Taking a walk, eating some snackies. That's all it really comes down to.
Yep.
Snackies in the woods.
Yep.
But why don't you tell us how you kind of got started in running? What is the origin story of Bejamneeeeen's running?
Well, I have really fond memories now, but I had a lot of conflict with one of my teachers about whether or not I could sit still in class. It was really difficult for me to sit still without fidgeting, and I was always kind of grabbing things around me and making noise, you know, tapping my fingers on the table.
Guilty.
So when that happened, she would make me run around the building. It's not a big building, and I didn't miss too much class, but she thought it would be more efficient if I ran before class. And so she mentioned to my dad, who worked at the school, that I could probably use like 2 to 3 miles before we even came in the morning. And she was absolutely right. Shout out to Galasha, my Chinese language teacher.
Yeah.
Ni hao, Galasha. And
I'm sure she's watching with bated breath.
I hope she does, because it made a big impact. Here I am talking about this completely different thing for something that happened in a Chinese language class, many years ago now. That was probably 25 years ago.
One of my running icons is this woman who I shouted out in my first episode where I talk about my running history, Karen, who's just a woman that I worked with at a nursing home, who inspired me to run my first half marathon, who really had no business inspiring me to run any kind of distance, but here she was. And she lives rent-free in my brain now. Shout out Karen. Love you, Karen.
Yeah, but my teacher was absolutely right. Like, I did have trouble sitting still, and running longer and longer distances was one way I found to kind of tire myself out a little bit. I think the brain works really well in that tired moment.
I can definitely identify with that too. One of the things that I've definitely benefited from with running is being able to be tired. I'll tell you what though, I'm getting to the point where, okay, the marathon distance is not pedestrian to me yet, and we've had this conversation, but I used to be able to run like 15 to 20 miles and come home and be like exhausted and take a nap. Now I can run a full marathon. I can't take a freaking nap because my body will not, it's not tired enough anymore. I'm like, grr.
Well, whatever it was, 48 miles in the wilderness was enough to make me take a nap.
Yeah, as it should be. That's not a distance that's pedestrian to, I think, anyone, unless you're like Courtney DeWalter. Then it's a pedestrian
it is a little bit. And the 50 mile is kind of a pedestrian distance. Like, we're done in the day. It's a fast race. It tends to be dominated by young people moving quickly over like the interspersing ground. I finished climbing those mountains and I'm done. I'm like hiking to the next.
You say, I like how casually you're talking about this. Like, it's just like a simple thing. Whereas like I go out hiking, or like we go for like a really light like basic trail run. I fall like multiple times.
I went down a week ago. It happens to everybody all the time. Planning to be falling is half the battle.
I know. I'm getting better at just accepting the fact that I probably will fall, given the fact that I'm a klutz anyway.
Well, it's your judgment, but, catching yourself in your forearms, I think you did a good job falling into things that weren't going to hurt you. Like, you totally checked it out where you're going to fall. It was fine.
Yeah, I didn't hit that stump. It was a nice time,
It was hilarious watching.
And that was one of those falls, too, where you fall and you kind of like feel yourself hovering before you smack the ground. Yeah. So I was like, I'm falling.
Well, for context, there's a woman and her dog standing 2 feet away from you.
So I also had an audience.
Yeah, who I don't know. If they're out there watching, like, we enjoyed that moment, I hope, as much as they did.
Like, look at that dweeb falling. There she goes. Boom, boom.
Yep.
I have a nice scar still on my arm. Look at that. It's very nice.
Yeah, we should talk more about like just scar care and getting plant oils out of skin. Techno is a great product.
Yeah, I did use a little bit of duct tape to like get some of the
I stand by that. I think name brand duct tape is one of the best like shrapnel removers that you can get.
But as we do, Ben, when we're normally having a conversation between two people with ADHD, we kind of took a detour right
we
there.
We varied far from the point. You can tell on the trail when you're here because spider webs start hitting you in the face. And you're like, oh, nobody came through here before me.
Yeah.
It's time to turn around.
You're like, oh, man, I think I might have gone the wrong direction. Yeah. But getting back to the main trail, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So we're in high school. I start running. If you've ever been to Concord, Massachusetts, the Old North Bridge National Park is this tiny little park. It's not a pocket park, but it's not huge either. And I would run around it in the morning. I would go over the bridge where the Revolutionary War started, and then I would like trot on up the hill and turn around and come back. And it was beautiful. I'd never really been outside. As like a toddler, you're not allowed outside in the morning. Like your parents have a clear vision of where you are. So it wasn't until I had like permission, and actually direction to go out and burn off some energy that I started doing it. And immediately hit all the runner problems, like stomach cramps, shin splints, like I got everything.
Yeah.
And so that was the experience. It was beautiful, and I enjoyed probably the endorphins that started to come with it. But no, it was really painful.
Yeah, I can identify with that too. But as someone who did the Couch to 5K program and a pair of $9 shoes from Payless, I feel like in that respect I was low-key asking for it.
I have no memory of what shoes I used to do this in.
I have like weird connections to, as we've learned already, to shoes.
Yeah.
Where I build emotional relationships with shoes, which may be not the best thing, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think many people have their cars. There's definitely an emotional relationship between people and their cars.
Yeah, to me, like, my car means like just transportation to me, but nothing. There's no emotional connection between me and a car. Me and my shoes, oh baby, yeah.
I think we're back off the trail again.
Yeah, we're back off the trail. But you start running in high school. Did you do track in high school or like cross country?
It took a really terrible soccer coach to get me into cross country running. And I had this guy one year who just really turned me off of the sport. And the next year I joined the cross country team and immediately found like freedom.
That's nice.
It's kind of up to you what you do in cross country. If you go out and you work hard every day, you'll do well in the races and your coach will recognize it. And, if you don't,
guess these meets are probably going to hurt a little bit more than the people who did any kind of practice.
At the finish line, everybody's going to come in a line, and you'll be at the end of it.
You'd be like,
well, that's my memory of like the preseason. I get invited to preseason, and I'm running the end of like the long 8 mile, whatever the long run that week is, and the kids in the public school bus go by and just shout like, "You're cut." You gotta laugh, right? Like, unfortunately, there were no cuts. Like they were.
I can just imagine that kid's voice too. This little kid with like 5 million pimples all over his face, just like leaning out of like the top of the bus window. Man, you're a cat.
I'm like, pegged on the telephone pole 100 feet away. Like,
you're just trying to zone
in. Yeah, it's not like the most interesting thing. People yelled out their car windows at me, but it's my favorite because it's the first.
That's a good one though. That's a fun little memory to just like keep in your back pocket once in a while and take out. That's a memory when you're like, probably I imagine like 30 miles deep into a trail run, just like kind of like pops into your head randomly.
Well, I remember it because of what happened next.
Okay.
About a quarter mile later, I got really lost and I was out.
Oh no.
I was out for quite a while.
Oh no.
So like the last thing anybody has said to me is "you're cut," and all of a sudden I'm alone in the woods and it's getting dark. It's preseason, so like there's no class after this. Like nobody's gonna notice until maybe 8:30 at night that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm new at the school. Like, oh my god. Anyways, it worked out well. I'd taken a turn at a gate that looked a lot like the gate I was supposed to turn at. And there you are, lost in the woods.
Your first foray into orienteering,
Yeah, and I loved what happened next. Like, I panicked, first of all, and then second of all, like the next reaction was just taking apart, like, okay, how did I get here? I turned at the gate. How sure am I about the gate? I'm not that sure about the gate. It looked like a gate, not the gate.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I go back to the gate, and it's like, no, this is not the gate. But in the moment, it looked like the gate. I think I learned a really valuable lesson. I've gotten lost a lot since then, but.
I mean, I would imagine.
Yeah, but that was the first time.
Yeah. I get lost a lot too, but that's just, I have a lot of the directional issue, but I'm getting better at it,
Yeah, and I think to all the people who shout out car windows at runners, like you never know what's next in that runner's life.
Yeah.
So think about what you say.
Yeah. So you get screamed at by a kid from a bus.
Several kids from the bus.
Several kids from the bus.
They coordinated it. They were great.
Oh, good. Okay.
Harmony, everything.
Wow, that's impressive.
I imagine like a set of little angels. You're cut.
Like 1, 2, 3. You're cut. Good. Okay. Thank you.
Anyway, the school had a great music program.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Wow. The a cappella group was just like spot on.
Yeah.
So you meet the a cappella group. And
so high school running is very much what you expect. Like I don't take it seriously. I don't know anything about nutrition. I'll eat like French fries and go to a meet. And so, understandably, I don't perform particularly well.
I mean, I feel like you've kind of come back around to the snackies and running.
I've come full circle on food, particularly food while running,
Yeah.
But in a 5K, you don't really need to.
No.
If you're eating in a 5K,
you're just pulling a Michael Scott right there. That's all you're really doing. You're asking to be vomiting up Alfredo. That's really the long and short of that one. So when you went to college, did you do any kind of running or?
No, I explicitly did not.
Okay.
I had social goals for college, and they did not include running. And Los Angeles, frankly, is not a place that. No, so I was just like, well, what's my life going to be if I completely ignore my health and wellness? And I just took a big 180-degree turn the other direction.
I like your commitment to research and science. I was having
that will appear as a trend.
Yeah. I was having this thought the other day. I can't remember what it was, but it was something where I was like, I wouldn't do this, but Ben would, because he would literally step outside and be like, for science!
Yeah, I mean, I love that we get to fiddle with the dials, right?
Yeah.
Like, everything from what we're eating to, the exercises we're doing. And you can twist them. I think as I've aged, I twist them like less hard. Like it used to be like, okay, let's see what 11 is like.
This thing goes up to 10, let's crank it up to 25.
Yeah, as far as the dial will go. And then I would go halfway in between,
Kind of like crank it all the way and maybe like try to push it a little bit further than it's supposed to go, and then push it back and see.
You can see it geographically because I go from New England, where I've grown up, to Los Angeles, which is as far away as you can get.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I go to St. Louis.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. 5 years in St. Louis.
Yeah, you've been a lot of different places.
St. Louis is where I started running again, and it's really the Forest Park area of the border between St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
Okay.
I would hop that border and go over into the city and go to the park, which is phenomenal. And even if you're only driving by, the Forest Park in St. Louis is like one of America's great landscapes.
It's a treasure.
It's appreciated by a lot of the people who live there, but like not nearly enough Americans see it.
Okay, I'll put that on my bucket
There's
list.
a free zoo. You can just walk in. There's a free art museum. Again, you can walk in. There's a free natural history museum. You just walk in.
Just walk in.
Yeah, you can go to all three in the same day. I used to go back and forth between the zoo and the art museum.
Like today I'll see some zebras, and then I'll see this painting of the canyon, and then I'll go back and then I'll see a lion, and then I'll see this painting of people in Renaissance Europe.
Well, as somebody with ADHD, you'll appreciate this, I think. That often the interactions of like getting tickets will totally throw the rhythm of an event. And what I appreciated most is I could put in headphones, listen to a single playlist, and literally walk into the art museum without talking to anyone, and walk around and see all my paintings. And then I could walk without talking to anyone and see all of my favorite animals.
I appreciate that. It's that segmentation that kind of either like it makes or breaks you as someone with ADHD. Like either you're like your day is like you're like I will segment it into these parts, and you would like it segmented into those parts if possible. Or if someone throws in another segment, you're like, no.
Well, and that's what got me into the running again, was that running around the different paths in the park were allowing me to build different thought processes, either with what I was reading and listening to on my headphones, or with what was going on in school. When I was in graduate school at that time.
And you were a teacher before this, correct?
No, after.
Oh, after. What's your graduate degree in?
Never claimed it.
Oh, okay.
Didn't stay long enough. I cut the last semester off, which allowed me to save substantially on my student loans. But will result in my never being an architect in most American states. Although New Hampshire, interestingly, I could.
Oh, okay.
And actually, if you apprentice with an architect for 7 years, I think consecutively, but I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
Maybe you just need 7 total years, but in New Hampshire, that's enough.
Okay.
And there are a lot of really good architects in New Hampshire who work very well in that state.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, I'm definitely in the camp too. And like, as I've started to foray more into like social media management and things like that, and my degree, for anyone's reference, I do have a master's degree in dietetics and a registered dietitian's license. Am I using that right now? Absolutely not.
Well, you are a little bit.
A little bit. Teeny, like a very small amount. That is not worth the amount of money I paid for that degree, to be honest.
Well, what's hard to measure is all the things you don't think. Like, because you're a dietitian, you haven't gone on a fab diet, right? Like, you haven't gone down all these different things that you've just sort of ruled out. And I think we tend to underestimate the amount that we've actually, learned and applied in our lives. So
that's a very
I'm not going to let you do it.
That's a very smart way to think about it, Ben.
Well, here we are.
But yeah, but what I've learned from like foraying into more social media stuff is that a lot of people for that, because there's not really a degree on a lot of the things that are happening currently, because it's like technology is evolving so quickly. There's not a master's degree in ChatGPT or AI, but things like that. Most people learn like on the job, and the best way to learn, I think personally, and how I learn is through doing instead of just like learning by books.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from the ADHD folks.
Yeah. So I can stand behind the way that New Hampshire has this like architectural thing going. I feel like most things should be like that. Why do we have to take gen eds that we're never going to use in college? That's silly.
Yeah, but I don't know. I had a good time in some of my gen eds. Others I don't remember because I maybe wasn't there.
Or maybe we had some kind of substances in your system potentially that like, no.
Just water and electrolytes.
Okay, sure, Ben.
That's my truth, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, you stick to that truth, my dude. You stick to it.
Thanks.
But you get out of college, you kind of you turn the dial up to like 25 out of 10. We decided maybe that's not the life we want to live long term.
No, I experimented with that for years. I think I'm only really recently come to moderation, you know, like trying to navigate the mediums. You know, as you can tell, life's a lot more calm because of that. Like, I'm realizing that I don't have to see big differences to measure the change in my life.
Did you used to be like loud when you were in college? Did you like scream?
I've definitely gone back and forth. I think naturally I'm a pretty quiet person, but I think in high school, the only way I saw to meet people was to just introduce myself. And so I came across, I think, as very like brash and intrusive, frankly, because I would just introduce myself to groups of students around campus. I met the whole school in 3 months, but like, it's efficient, but like, did I give each interaction the quality of attention that I would like? Absolutely not.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Right. That's the kind of learning experience you have when you twist the dial all the way. And so I think there's a lot of benefit to being somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. No,
You know?
no. I feel like I've gone like the opposite journey where like I started out really quiet. And I've just really turned the dial, like
Yeah, I mean,
all the way up.
the way that you found Kurt in this building, I think is a good example of that. You walked around saying his name until he was made to appear.
That's usually how I go and find people. I mean, you worked with me for long
know.
enough where like, I walk around like, Bejamneeeeen,
Yep, that's accurate.
One of my best friends, Jeff, knows that very well because we'll go to like conventions together and like obviously there are usually quite a few people at a convention and I'll literally just walk around and be like, Jeffrey until either someone says, someone find this girl's person or Jeff hears me and is like, I'm over here, Julia, and I'm like, thank you, Jeffrey. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about like loud, intrusive Ben.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, obviously I've gone a different direction since. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm comfortable introducing myself to people, but at the same time, you want to respect the relationships people have that they're already exercising without your help.
I feel like the Ben I know of, like the calm confidence Ben, like that feels authentic to me.
I think I've gotten to it. Yeah, sure. There was definitely a nervous energy around a lot of my youth. Which running probably helped to ground. So, you know, another reason to keep going with that.
Yeah. So you decide you're done with college. And where are you living at this point?
Well,
are you still in?
Rewind a little bit because I've glossed over a section, which is that during the time that I was in high school, I had phenomenal coaches. Like just some of the world's best youth coaches for running as a sport, not only in cross country, but also in track. And Mark Coogan and Hillary Coder are both just phenomenal teachers of like running, stretching, goal setting. So this was kind of the fabric. At the same time, I was really frustrated because I couldn't go that fast. You know? So like I was living on the one hand with incredible access to expertise, and the other hand like just
frustration with yourself.
Man, here we are, like midway up JV and just bumping along, like not having it. I have big goals and small accomplishments. That's how it feels.
I mean, as the person who's never going to run like a 5-minute mile, I get it, you know.
Well, but it pushes me, and I'm actually running faster now than I was then. But it's a lot of like figuring out what's keeping you back, you know, what's holding.
Yeah. What do you think was holding you back then?
I think I'd had a series of several injuries, and the effects of them had not fully healed. I was not fully aware of the effects of them.
Yeah.
And I think that these injuries locked up my muscles in such a way that it was impossible to really develop a natural form.
Yeah.
So, you've seen, for instance, when I'm running, all that roll in my right ankle.
Yeah, you got a lot of roll in that right ankle.
I've got a lot of roll because my hips used to be in a different position. Like the whole spine above them was kind of curved.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So at several points this gets measured, but I don't really put the pieces together until way later.
Yeah. I mean, as someone who has a lot of chronic health issues, like I totally get like finding the pieces as they come along, especially as you get older and are able to kind of like see things for yourself and not be so like just naive as a kid.
Sure. But it's that fundamental frustration of just like, why am I working so hard and not going faster? That's what I think motivated me to keep going as an adult. And there aren't a lot of kids, I think, or there are disappointingly few kids on my cross-country team who are still running.
Yeah, I've definitely found that because I'm someone who obviously entered running more or less as an adult, pretty much when I was like 18, so largely an adult. But and really found my stride in running as an adult. But I don't have any history of running as a kid. So I don't have that as much of a potential for burnout as someone who, say, started maybe in middle school or even earlier running, and then just kind of got disenchanted with running and thus has not really continued.
Maybe move to a place for a totally valid and laudable reason that makes running very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I was
very fortunate here.
Yeah, I always like to say, too, that if I didn't live on the Cape, I probably wouldn't run as much as I do.
Oh, man, I would love to live near a mountain.
Well, I mean, the mountains are a little bit different.
Just give me like a little mountain.
A little chinchilla.
Well, because if you have a little mountain, you can run up it from every different side of the mountain.
Baby mountain.
Just, it doesn't have to be huge. I'm not asking for a lot. Just.
Wouldn't that be a hill?
It could be. I think it could be a fairly impressive hill.
An impressive hill or a small mountain. A baby
That's
mountain.
all I'm talking about. It seems like a small ask, right? Like just a little mountain.
We gotta go run the golf course hill at some point because I think you'll like that hill.
It could be.
It's a fun hill.
But think how great the golf course would be if the golf course were a mountain.
You can probably honestly run around the golf course if you want. It is quite hilly.
Well, think how hard it would be to hit a golf ball, and like.
I just like to imagine you running through the golf course while people because it's a very high-end golf course, Woods Hole golf course, very high-end. So these people who are a little bit uppity about things are trying to hit golf balls and hoo, 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 hoo. And all they do is see you with your little running vest on and you wearing all your reflective gear and you just sloshing down a goo or something and taking a giant swig of water and just being like.
Nobody's ever aimed for me, but that does not mean that they haven't come really close to hitting me. Nicole will attest to this.
With a golf ball or with
Oh yeah, the last golf ball to nearly hit me passed about this close.
Really?
Yeah, it went right between us actually. She was running behind me on the trail and it went about 5 feet behind me.
Where were you running where there was a trail behind a golf course?
Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh.
Yeah, in the area a little bit northwest of Taliesin West for the architecture fans, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's southwestern studio.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Frank Lloyd West. Right. Frank Lloyd West, too. We shout out to you, both of them.
Two people with ADHD and a little bit of dyslexia attempt to give a history lesson on architecture with many names and dates.
And it did not go well. I wonder why that happened.
Yeah, no, me too. Anyways.
But okay, so we're running in high school. We're not running in college.
Yep. The dial goes back the other way.
Yeah, we moved down to where'd you move down?
Well, and then in St. Louis, in the middle of that, the running picks back up again as kind of a mental health strategy,
which is important.
Which is important, but I'm not yet supporting my running by diet and mindfulness. Those elements are pretty absent. Yeah. I'm bumping along the forest trail in the park, thinking about things that are stressing me out. It's not working yet. This is not synergy. I have frequent aches and pains. I'm not in the right shoes. I'm not in the right clothes. I'm not in the right mindset.
I feel like most runners can identify with that in some capacity.
Yeah,
I can very
it's definitely
much so
a dark middle ground.
Yeah, that zone where you're I think I like running, but there's some things about it that really just make it not enjoyable.
Sure. And a lot of it was, as a dietitian, I think he'll appreciate this, a lot of it was ideas that I had about food, what it meant to eat well, and what was available to me at the time. Yeah.
Well, where were you after this? Was it right after college? You kind of maybe struggling along?
I'd worked in a restaurant for a year, and that was it was the Bertucci's in Alewife, and I was the delivery driver. And that really exposed me to actual good cooking. It had great fresh ingredients that were delivered every day. I watched people break them down, and I'd heated things as a kid. I'm a great turkey sandwich maker out of the box, but this was the first time I'd ever seen somebody prepare a lot of something. And it was really impressive. And they did it all with a wood-fired oven, which is also super cool. And so I watched them for a year, and that got me really interested in food, and also aware that I knew absolutely nothing about food or how to cook it.
I think, and this is where I think the dietitian knowledge that you alluded to me having as part of one.
Right, would have precluded you from trying to make ketchup soup, which is something that I attempted.
Ben. Oh no, no.
I've done all the things. I've shattered glass. I've
ketchup
you name
soup?
it. Well, it made a lot of sense if you look at the ingredients.
You can just do tomato paste.
Yeah, but ketchup is free at IKEA, so.
guess, yeah, sure, why not?
You see what I mean? There were all sorts of things that I was doing in my life that were not supportive of running. So obviously the output was mediocre at best and not really goal-oriented.
Yeah. So it also is wild to me that like, and no shade on the Bertucci's, but that like, and I totally get it. Like growing up in a family where like the only vegetables we really ate were like canned corn and like canned peas and things like that.
Some frozen broccoli.
Yeah. We didn't have that. Like once in a while, my mom would make a salad, which was iceberg lettuce, white onion, and cucumber. Once in a while. So we never really had like any of that. And then like when I went to college, I actually started like cooking for myself too, as on top.
That's what didn't happen for me. I didn't start cooking in college.
I'll tell you what, I'm in the 1% of people who started cooking in college. Most people graduate college and in the one...
I had less knowledge than I'd started with in food.
Well, my favorite transition, just being someone who worked in the dining hall, was getting dietitian training more or less, getting my license and stuff, and then was working in the Framingham State Dining Hall where I went. My favorite transition was the people who like it was that 2 weeks of like graduating and then living at home, that like 2 week span where people were like, oh, the dining hall sucks, the dining hall's terrible, I can't believe they don't have pizza again. And then you go home and they're like, I'd like to make a cheese sandwich and I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah. Don't complain about the dining hall when you literally
the development of taste far exceeds the ability.
Yeah, they're like, the food today is not 5 stars at the dining hall, and then they go home and they're like, I think I'm gonna make ketchup soup.
At that point, you've eaten very few really good meals maybe in your life. You know, you don't yet have aspirations or like the ability to really buy ingredients or the knowledge to know what you're doing with them.
This ketchup soup thing is really gonna like make me chuckle. I'm gonna think of it like randomly throughout the day.
Well,
it's gonna make me laugh real hard.
Imagine you're on a fixed budget, right? And you only have a certain amount of money that you're gonna spend on food. And one of the flavors that like keeps me going in life is umami. You know, the sort of salty, almost
sweet,
soy sauce
salty,
taste.
Savory.
Right.
Yeah.
So imagine that you've failed to account for that in your budget, and you have now run out of like anything to do with that flavor. Like, there's nothing in the back of the cupboard. Like, there's food. You're not going to starve.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the house. And you've been sitting there for about 2 days eating things which are salty and buttery because you have both of those things, but you haven't had umami.
Yeah.
And you start to look at that ketchup packet, and it starts to beckon.
And you're like...
And you start to wonder, you know, like, I don't know. This is a little like Campbell's soup.
You didn't think like maybe I'll just put this on a sandwich or something like that, or like?
No, because I really wanted like a substantial
raw dog
meal.
The ketchup?
No, I didn't know anything about goo, you know, which is, you know, kind of an alarming cross connection there.
Honestly, yeah. And the fact that like for a little bit during COVID, people were using ketchup as a fuel source, which was wild to me. Which honestly,
definitely got salt and a little bit of vinegar.
I was gonna say
probably some vitamin C.
It's not that far off the mark when it comes to like that kind of stuff. There's just some extra stuff in there that you probably just don't want to deal with your body breaking down in the process.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, needless to say, I eat very differently now. And
yes.
That time of like, you know, largely failure was also a time of great experimentation, and I think I exposed myself to a lot of different foods and food groups. Yeah.
So you learn essentially how to at least kind of cook something.
Yeah, there's some moments of brilliance. You know, microwave brownies and fish cooked with sesame seeds in toasters. That's
pretty good.
Yeah, well, I thank my mom for that one.
The fish in the toaster or the microwave
brownie?
brownie?
Yeah, just how to with a fish fillet, you know, like the olive oil, just cover it and flip it over, sesame seeds and a little more drizzle, toast it.
Now you can always do the classic Girl Scout meal. You put everything in tinfoil and you shove it in the oven. That's always a good one.
Yeah, well, I hadn't learned that one yet.
Yeah, well, maybe you should have been a Girl Scout. You know, I was a Girl Scout for kindergarten through when I graduated high school. Learned a lot of skills there. That tinfoil one, that's a good one.
Yeah, great vest. I remember the vests.
I had multiple vests. And as you being the connoisseur of vests, I feel like I should be the connoisseur of vests when it comes to it now that I think about it. I was like, wow, I actually have worn quite a few vests in my time. Puffer vests, Girl Scout vests, so many vests. But you're kind of like, so you're learning about food and fueling a little bit better. Where did that take you from there once you kind of learned how to fuel yourself a little bit better than you had been?
Well, you know, in the middle of that, I drop out of graduate school. Like that suddenly takes over like all the things I was doing up until that point. Like if I'm going to do them, I'm going to do them in a different way. You know, I'm not going to have the degree. I'm not going to go straight forward and register as a licensed architect. Any involvement I want to have has to be through the business office, and we'll get back to that. But
do you want to talk about why you dropped out of college?
Yeah, I think it was a business decision, and it ceased to be good value for money. I didn't have a lot of confidence that the administration was going to get me to graduate. That they had thought through things to the point where I could arrange credits in a like economically efficient way in order to achieve a degree. And so I asked a lot of people for advice at that time, and one of them was a really successful architect who was doing exactly what I wanted to do. And he's like, you absolutely don't need the degree, because if you want to run a practice like this, the first thing you're going to do is hire your friends who are registered licensed architects. And so your expertise then needs to be in the business of architecture.
Oh, okay.
And I come back to that professionally later in life.
To me, Ben, all the life experience you have makes it sound like you're like 75 years old.
We're going to go through 2 other professions before we get there.
Jesus Christ.
The first one is teaching. Because what do you do?
ADHD.
Well, there's a little bit of that going on too. You know, what do you do with like half of a degree? You know, you have to bank on the knowledge you acquired, and the only thing you can really do is teach. And the only people who are really willing to listen to somebody who has half a degree are kids. So I went into teaching.
Were you just teaching like general classroom, like everything?
I taught STEAM. Our goal was to take, creative thinking in the 4-year-old set, and then over the course of elementary school, build that into, like a collaborative group experimental setting, like a lab. So the idea being that kids would use their imagination to think about the results of experiments, which they would perform throughout the course of the school day. And it could be anything from setting up a trail camera at recess to see what a squirrel eats. And they'd set out like several little treats. The answer, obviously, is the squirrel eats absolutely everything that's out there.
I don't know why anyone thinks the answer would be anything else.
I've got a lot of documentary evidence that it just goes one by one.
I mean, anyone who's ever lived literally anywhere where there are squirrels, you can definitely attest to the fact that the squirrel will eat anything in its path.
Right, but I love that these kids approach me to ask the question. And my job was to arm them with the technology to answer their questions in order to teach them that you can.
Kind of give them the skill set and also the tools to be like, hey, you can answer that question for yourself.
Yep, absolutely. COVID interrupts all of that. Our plan is to do this over 5 years. We're going to produce a book with it. We have this strategic new direction for the school. It's going to revitalize our student body. And then COVID really hits that administration, like a wall. And rather than choosing to be outside, they choose to be inside. I could have gone on as a first grade teacher, but it would have been a very different program. I was running a 110-person outdoor program at one point, and then I would have been inside all day. And that's what really flips it for me. So I quit, unfortunately, very late in the summer, and go to work on a farm.
And you can be outside all day long if you want.
Exactly. That was a little bit my thinking. It's also a time where we're isolating from people. And so all of a sudden I'm surrounded by animals. And I think that probably had a big supportive role in getting me through that pandemic.
You know, there's nothing wrong with having a cow who's your best friend.
Even if they occasionally cause a problem. And shout out to Rhubarb here, because Rhubarb at Quirky Creek Farm taught me that lesson.
Is Rhubarb a cow?
Rhubarb is a cow, a particularly independently minded cow who I befriended on day one. And she then proceeded to, at several points, abuse that friendship. There was a lot of, I think, care and tenderness on her part, but then also some serious, flagrant, shirking of the rules of cows, shall we say? Staying inside the fence, for instance. So I look back and she's, just taken off running into the fresh grass. And now I have to convince 35 dairy cows that actually they don't want to eat this incredible fresh grass.
And they want to standing there being like, you guys want to follow me.
Anyways, they didn't. They wanted to follow Rhubarb. And so that's where I actually learned about a great pair of, let's call them running boots, but the Salomon Gore-Tex it's like an ultralight boot. It's amazing. It's built on their Ultra Sole. And this is one of my first real experiences of a really good ultra shoe. It was actually my farming shoes.
So you start dabbling in ultra shoes via Rhubarb the Cow.
Definitely.
Shout out Rhubarb the Cow.
Yeah, and well, it's that kind of like you have like one little. There's some situation in your life which demands something, like you need to, in your waterproof boots, sprint across a field.
Yeah.
In order to not lose the cows, which is like half the job.
Yeah.
Like keep the cows with water and don't lose the cows. And if all you do is that, you're halfway to success.
I mean, that sounds fair.
Well, anyways, I was on my way to not doing one of those things, and those boots really got me out of that bind.
Yeah, so that's something that kind of one of those core memories that lives rent free.
Yeah, good gear can really enable you to like change the course of events rapidly.
Yeah, yeah, and now you're a big Solomon fan.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
So that kind of started your relationship with Solomon and utilizing those shoes.
Yeah, my relationship with them, not their relationship with me, but it fits my foot really well too, and that's
I feel like that's the case with most shoe brands. We have relationships with their shoes, but they want nothing to do with us unless you're like at the upper echelon of the elite athletes. They're like, you think we're going to send you free shoes or anything like that, or we're going to even acknowledge your presence? Absolutely.
Well, it's a shoe I like to mention because it's not sold in a lot of U.S. stores, and so you have to go looking for it. And like a store like REI only carries a limited selection of them, and so just knowing these shoes are out there, that if you do delve into the internet, there are amazing trail shoes.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many like weird niche shoes out there. Like, I mean, I'm wearing my Mount to Coast S1s, which anyone watching or listening is probably like, what the heck is a Mount to Coast? It's a road ultramarathon shoe. But it's just a small little brand. There are so many different shoes out there. One, within the bigger brands, and two, just from smaller brands, like say Mount to Coast, or even, I wouldn't call Solomon a smaller brand.
No, well, maybe here in the United States, but you know, Puma's a huge company, but their running brand is tiny, at least here.
But they have great shoes.
Yeah.
Ben just ran here in the Puma DV8 3s.
Yeah, they're really nice.
I actually just ordered on Mercari a pair of slightly used Puma DV8 1s.
Oh, no kidding.
$5. They've been coming to me. Oh, that's the thing.
Heck of a drop off. I was hoping this was an investment.
No. That was the thing. Actually, now I'm remembering correctly, where like I was like thinking in my head for science, because I'm just like, you know, for $5, we might as well try the first model of the shoe that we all like so much.
Yeah.
So give it a go.
I ran in the 2 this morning when I was running with Finn, and I looked on the underneath when I was about to put them on, and there are acorns in both of the foam cutouts. Yeah, and I just thought, you know, good, because if I have an acorn there, I can't have a rock. So
there you go.
I'm just going to leave the acorns in.
That's a good way to stop rocks from getting caught in there.
That's, you know, so like there are all these little realizations that pile up, and it's like when you become an ultra runner, it's like you appreciate being an ultra runner at moments when you've picked up your carbon shoe and there's an acorn in the bottom, and you leave the acorn because you've thought about it, and like the acorn's not the problem.
Yeah, it's not doing anything bad.
No.
No, it's going to stop a rock from getting caught in there. You'd much rather have an acorn in there than a rock.
I think if the shoes came with acorns.
No,
out of the box.
This is the pitch you're going to have to make to Puma by yourself. I will not stand behind you on this one.
You imagine oak trees start growing in the basement. Like the unbought shoes.
Only around the Puma section. Only around the Pumas. They're like,
well, it's like people whose gutters start sprouting trees. You know?
That would actually be pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
I vote that happens.
Yeah, well, the apparel industry is massive, and you know, they are looking for green solutions. So
there you go.
10% of their shoe is spandex, and 5% is an acorn.
It's a legitimate. It's like made out of it. No, it's just straight up an acorn that we shoved in there.
Yep, that's from an oak tree.
Yeah. Bob the oak tree.
It's carbon capture. It's all the things.
Yeah, they can put like 100% renewable energy on that bad boy right there.
Yeah, it probably begins to pay for itself. It's the kind of investment I like to make.
I'm here for it, you know.
What I don't understand is how you tore through the rubber on your TVA2s so quickly. You know?
Oh yeah, I
like you shredded your Nova Blast this morning, and not just this morning.
Those only have like 100 miles on them.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, huge shout out to the Magic Speed 3. Wow, what a workhorse of a shoe this.
Is it still surviving?
Yeah, it's still got it's got like almost 250 miles on it.
Yeah, that's how much my DV2s now have.
Yeah.
The acorn's less, maybe about 10.
Yeah.
I might have to replace them.
You can replace your shoes like every like 300 to 500 miles. The acorn probably every like 50 miles, maybe.
Yeah, that's how I'll sell them.
If we're being generous about it. But you know, you can just get it as the acorn, free replacement on the acorn.
I'm going to make some squirrels a day. Actually, 2 squirrels, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You know, I think the nice thing is that once you're done with the acorn, it's cracked and you can just give it to the squirrel and the squirrel has a nice little snacky.
Right.
So
as opposed to my shoes, which my dog eats. So.
Yeah. Finn likes snackies too.
Also acorns.
Finn is Ben's dog. But, okay, so where were we before we...
Well, we've taken it up through graduate school, and I'm trying to highlight the role that running has had as like a mental health stabilizer. Like, up until this point, I've been limiting myself by diet and running for mental health because I feel pretty good after I run.
Yeah.
That's the correlation I've noticed up until now.
Okay. And so we're up in New Hampshire.
Well, and school's basically just been canceled, and I'm now working on a farm. And I'm not running very much right now, but I am hiking like 14 miles a day to get the cows around. And then there's also just like a lot of physical, milking itself is like an upper body action. You get your shoulders up, and
I can only imagine.
Right, so I'm basically going through like a MMA course, right? Like every night I go and do MMA in a submarine, and all around me are Volkswagens, and the Volkswagens have ideas of their own, and I have to dodge the Volkswagens while doing the MMA to the hoses, and then it's cold. Like increasingly, it starts to get really cold. So I get really interested in like layering my gloves, layering my socks. Like, how can I be warmer in the course of my day?
This is where Juliana starts to think, wow, Ben is such an ultramarathoner. I feel like one of the key things in my head that kind of separates regular marathon runners from ultramarathoners is the level of scrappiness and the level of ingenuity, we shall say, when it comes to your gear / like what you will utilize something for.
Sure. Insoles are probably a good example. I rip the insoles out of everything.
Yeah, which is absolutely
DV2s,
wild.
I do not have the original insoles in.
Wild. Absolutely wild to me that you'd be switching up these insoles the way that you do.
The Nova Blast was not for me, but I think the insole that comes with it is phenomenal at kind of providing a very nice firm cushion over what is to me a very like a protrusive grid, where that fabric runs over the plate in the DV2.
Yeah.
Like I get sand stuck in there, I get the shape of it itself was beginning to impress through into the top side of the factory made insole.
Yeah.
So I checked that and put the Nova Blast one in there, and it feels phenomenal. Well, it's not just water. Now I mix things into the water. I drink very little actual water.
Yeah, which is funny now thinking about like your last ultramarathon, how you described to me is you like starfishing out, which is like not funny in the moment, but kind of funny after the fact.
It was kind of funny in the moment, but nobody was around to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one.
You're referring to the moment in the race in Pittsfield, the free to run 50 mile, when coming down the hill from like lap 2 maybe, I start to experience like real severe muscle spasms in the back of my body. I lock up and like grab a tree to keep from going down. Yeah, just like that.
Oh, exactly. I've had that happen to me before too.
Exactly.
That's what happened to me at the Chicago Marathon, where I was like, oh boy, did I ever look like Captain Hook peg-legging my way down the finish line?
Well, that's one thing I appreciate about running in the woods. It's like nobody sees it happen; they just find you on the ground. And fortunately, that didn't happen in that race. But I think that was maybe not liquid so much as salt. So.
Yeah. So now we gonna be raw dogging those noons, right?
You and I had talked about it, and I'd even gone into that race with a plan to eat a noon at some point, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, for anyone who's watching or listening, noons are those little round hydration tabs that you drop into your water, and they kind of effervescent out and bubble out. But we just like to chuck them into the corner of our mouths and just kind of suck on those bad boys.
Yeah, like one day Juliana turns to me and says, like, you can eat that. And so I don't put it in the bottle, and I just put it in my mouth, and it goes off like Pop Rocks.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. And you burp at the end, which feels good on your stomach. So.
Yeah, just get that gas, get some gas going, and get some like Pop Rocky feeling in your mouth, and then it's like, ugh.
Yeah, so still learning, But what is that? Like, so living in Vermont, I'm still not actually drinking enough water. And it's a few experiences of hypothermia that make me think, like, I have to either get serious about this or I have to turn around and not do this anymore.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you got serious about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't sound like you turned it around and didn't do it anymore.
No, that's when I buy the running pack. I get the hydration bladder. Mistakes still to be made there, but I begin to have things like gear that I am carrying with me. That's where I kind of escalate to carrying a pack.
Now you're a known pack boy.
Yeah, no, I just think it's convenient. You know, like it's all your things are right there.
Yeah, one of the things where, like, anytime I see you, Ben has a running backpack on him.
Yeah.
Like, there's Ben, the ultramarathon runner, with his little backpack.
Yeah, and like it's full of fresh clothes, which I'm obviously not using. But
Yeah, no.
I had them.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's nice
the
to be
intention.
prepared. Yeah.
It's always good. It's
Yeah, I
always
think
good.
it's a versatile piece of equipment that carries a lot of things.
Yeah, I need to look into getting a backpack.
It also unloads the sides from having to do too much. I like that. Like it sits all over your upper torso, and so you're much more. The weight is much more distributed.
Yeah, that's why you think I'm wild holding my phone in one hand.
I think that's nuts.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been doing that for like, I don't know, like 10 years now at this point.
Well, it's from when I was originally running. I got an iPod in 5th grade, like one of the big chunky 20 gigabyte ones.
You used to run with that thing in your hand?
Oh yeah, I did, and I noticed, no surprise, very quickly that one of my arms was getting much bigger than the other arm, and since it was my dominant arm, I didn't want that reputation, and so I began alternating. But
Yeah, no.
I eventually started running without music, and now I'm carrying a phone for safety, but I
Yeah.
don't want it in my hands. I don't even want it on my side, strapped to my legs. I want it
Yeah.
floating
Somewhere.
somewhere.
Somewhere in
with
the
like
zone of the
straps
strap /
distributed.
the...
Yeah, I think they're really versatile. I don't use the running bladder anymore though, because I got a spider in it once, and it was disgusting.
Oh, okay.
I was filling it up at a spigot, and I did not notice the spider drop in, and I just started feeling awful. That's the worst I've
no.
felt running. It's
Was
just,
it like a poisonous spider or something?
no, it was dead, and it just like began to decompose in the water.
Oh, ew, Ben. Yuck,
I'm,
yuck, yuck,
like
yuck,
8
yuck,
miles
yuck.
from home, and so like some lessons are learned, the hard way. And now I use dishwasher safe water bottles, and that's why I have like this,
Yeah. you got-
hard plastic thing, is that I can unscrew this, disinfect it,
Yeah.
overnight, and it's clean in the morning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, as someone who accidentally made dehydrant tea, and that's why
Yeah.
I starfished out of
Yeah.
Chicago.
yeah, you're
I learned
supposed to
some
take the
lessons.
desiccant out of the bottle.
Oh, no, I did not realize it. This is like the 10th of the version of that bottle that I owned, and like none of the other ones had that in there.
Yeah, they are a little bit sparse with the desiccant sometimes.
Yeah, didn't see it. Was wondering why all my muscles just seized up. And then I ended up fainting on the...
Yeah, but as I remember, the medical staff are like involved and right there, right?
They were there. The problem was that I fainted on the train
Oh, yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
So, but shout out to the 2 people who caught me before I slammed my head onto the pavement.
Yeah.
Because I went
If
to
someone near you is falling, catch
pick them up. Well, the thing is too is that I've fainted before, so I knew I knew that I was going
Right,
to
what
faint.
was about to happen.
So I literally yelled on the subway. I was like, I'm going to faint. I'm going to faint. And I made eye contact with the people who
Yeah.
largely ended up catching me. I guess after that, I don't remember anything after that. Before I like woke up and my head was in this guy's lap, and I was just like. But apparently, I stood up. I went to exit the train, and then proceeded to faint forward onto the cement barrier thing right there, the platform.
Yeah, public transit, it'll get you.
Yeah, and luckily someone caught me, and I said, "Thank you, good sir. I do not have a concussion and a broken skull."
Yeah.
So that was a fun time, but it's a learning process,
Yeah, I mean, you just hope that you make the mistakes in a comfortable enough environment that you don't break something or hurt something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the mind of like, I feel like with you two, we're like, I'd rather eat shit on a training run than in front of people at a race if I can avoid it,
Oh, I went down hard a couple times in cross country. Where like people were around, and you show up with like bruises or bleeding on the finish line, and it's just not a good look.
It's like, oh no, something happened to Ben, and everyone's mom's like, oh no, does Ben need help? Can I get him a Band-Aid? And then you're like, leave me alone, mom.
Yeah, I think I was bad at asking for help, particularly from adults. And I think
Yeah.
there were a lot of times where I cleaned it up myself and bandaged it, where maybe I should have sought
Just
medical
asked for help.
attention.
Well, I feel like at a baseline, men or male identifying people, generally speaking, are a little bit worse at asking for help than our female.
Yeah, look, I can't
friends.
buck that trend.
Yeah, it's just like at least 8 out of 10 male identifying people worse than asking for help with their female identifying friends. But you can be an exception to the rule, but it doesn't sound like you were or are Ben. But that's okay.
No, I was
You
not.
learn things.
I'm very much someone who, if you tell me about something that it will be a consequence of an action, I will definitely do it.
Yeah, for science.
Exactly. So we know.
Yeah, you have to figure it out. You have a very analytical brain of just
Yeah.
like figuring
What you told me
things
was
out.
your testable hypothesis, and what I did was test it.
Yeah, and
That's how
then
it
you
looks
just
to
come
me.
back with data.
Right. Good
And
data.
Yeah, you can have, and maybe you have to try it again to get more data.
Of course.
So
That's the best data.
Yeah, data that you've proven over and over again that this method does not work, and you have 5 scientific studies to prove it. That was not the correct course of action.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of those moments. Like everybody, I think, tries putting salt in their water bottle because they think they're supposed to drink their salts while they're exercising, and immediately you just produce this really bad acid in your stomach.
Yeah.
But what we mean is like a pH balanced tablet, like a Noon or a Goo tablet, to dissolve in the bottle. So I started doing a lot more of that. I started playing with electrolytes. Also, living in Vermont, you're able to eat really well. There's just amazing food all around, and there's amazing yogurts and cheeses and kind of higher calorie items that maybe aren't sold that, like, it's very difficult to transport a cheese and then sell it effectively.
Yeah,
How do you find your market?
Yeah,
but
get these like higher fat items that are more, they're just better. They taste better.
Yeah, well, I tootle by the dairy farm and, exercise my employee discount. And I've always tried to have like a employee discount somewhere in my basic needs. If it's food, I want to be working in a restaurant or like for a farm. If it's clothing, I want to be working for a place like the Runnahs where I get great gear.
Discounts on shoes, not a bad idea.
And architecture too is absolutely shelter. So there you've got food, clothing, and shelter, and I would love a discount on all 3. That's my dream.
Maybe someday we'll make that dream come true, Ben. Maybe, you got
one piece at a time.
You got the shoes and the clothes going on now.
That's right.
We'll see if we can find a food one, I might be working with the Farm and Family people coming up soon, so
Yeah, sounds great. I'd love to sign up for a CSA here in town.
I think they have a CSA. We can ask Kurt. He actually worked with them extensively. He's the one who connected me with them.
Well, fantastic. I'm glad we found him today.
Yeah, he'll know all about the CSA. He actually gets a meat CSA that he was telling me about the other day. So he can tell you about that too. Support local family organizations, friends.
Well, yeah, so I start eating well by accident. It happens to me. I don't seek it out with like any particular knowledge, but all of a sudden I'm eating this amazing food and totally like living alone. I'm doing yoga for 2 hours every morning. Like there is nobody around.
It sounds like a nice time.
Yeah, I think up until that point, as a teacher, like the students were first or the students' parents were second. And so there were all these other people I was answering to and all these other wants and needs that I had to meet or felt like I had to meet.
Yeah.
And so COVID just shut all that down. And it's like, no, you're going to hang out by yourself. And my only child brain went like, finally.
Yeah. The relief you didn't know that you like you knew something was off and you wanted something, but you couldn't exactly pinpoint it. But then once it showed up directly in front of you, you were like, no, this is exactly what I wanted.
It was that. And I was just fortunately really well placed in this very desolate part of Vermont to like sit and observe the seasons.
And just be by yourself, have a nice cheese, go for a nice run, say hello to the cows.
And I start having some really nice runs. Some really nice runs.
Yeah.
And so I'm up in the marathon distance, like bouncing around these mountains and just getting lost in the woods, and I'm having a great time. And
you just do this by yourself.
Yeah, I don't do any of the things right. I don't tell anyone where I'm going. I don't have a first aid kit. I don't have I do start carrying a cell phone, but I'm just like not doing it well.
I'm sure the reception in the spots where you're running probably is not the best.
That's what kills me is the reception is fantastic. The Taconic Crest Trail is like a cell phone dream.
Really?
You are hit by excellent cell phone signals from both sides. You have 4 bars the whole time.
No way.
You cannot get lost in the woods on the Taconic Crest Trail.
Wow. Okay.
Without finding some really friendly people who would like to sell you some yogurt or some cheese.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you have like built-in snackies?
There are snacks in every direction. Like the first thing you will hit in any direction is
like
a snack.
Cheese shop or something?
Yeah. Or like a family farm producing milk for maybe one of the large buyers on the New York side. There's a lot of Chobani up there. On the Vermont side, it tends to be like, small family. The Vermont label has a lot of value.
Oh yeah, like Vermont cheese.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a marketing component, and there's just really good products too.
I mean, if you can get like local stuff, I feel like your whole like food journey kind of speaks to what one of my thoughts as a dietitian is that your environment is extremely indicative of how you eat.
Yeah.
And the way that you change how you eat isn't necessarily by what you actually choose throughout the day. Yeah. It's changing your environment.
Sure.
And like the environment of how you like move your body and exercise and just like the general vibe around that in the place where you are. And 2, what food is easily available and accessible to you.
That's a huge piece. Easily available. And accessible,
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like if you live on a suburb where there's a McDonald's in like a quarter of a mile in every direction, but then there's a farmer's market that is half a mile away from you, you're just going to go to most people will just go to the McDonald's because there's like 5 of them, and then you could go to the farmer's market, but you have to walk a little bit further. So why are you going to do that?
Yeah. No, it actually was more convenient there with less. Like the farm store, for instance, is open 24 hours a day, and you self-checkout. So, like, if it's 3 in the morning and you need food, you can just go there and buy it. You don't have to like wait until a shop's open in the morning. That's kind of nice. It's fantastic, you know. So like there's a lot of like convenience to life, and it made it very easy to run and to do it well.
Yeah.
Plus, there are a lot of hills, so you get to work out.
Big fan of hills. Yeah.
I think they're the best place to do work. You know, like actual grinding, make yourself better work.
Yeah, I will say, just having run Clarence Zamore, I was running my last marathon. Like I like hills. Like I got to the end of that marathon, and the last
it's interesting to go up and down.
Yeah, I find it, and I find it more painful to honestly run flat than I do to.
Davisville was definitely the most painful part of the Cape Cod Marathon for me. Like as somebody with ADHD, as somebody who loves to run and who does not love to run on roads all the time.
Yeah.
Davisville was where I felt it most.
A flat out and back.
Yeah. It was interesting to see the leaders go past, going the other direction.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to see that, but like, if I could mentally fast forward through that portion of the race, that would be it. Everything else was nice though.
Yeah, the year I ran the Chowder Challenge, I don't know how familiar you are with the roads in Falmouth quite yet. I don't know if you've made it out. You probably haven't then. Okay. So if you go a little bit further down past Davisville, you're going to hit, I believe it's, people in Falmouth come for me, I guess. Menahut. I always say it incorrectly.
That's how I've been informed it's pronounced.
Minot. You hit Minot, and you have to take a left when you get to the end of that. If you head all the way down to the end of that, you're going to hit Kenyon's Market. Sorry. That used to be the year I did the Chowder Challenge. That was part of it, and that's further down the street than David. That's a solid like 4 miles of the course.
It's the longness and the straightness, and the monotony of the curb and the road surface that just. So I had a lot of time to think about my tsunami thriller. That's what I was thinking about during that.
Oh yeah, the one that I'm going to be filming.
Yep.
And that you and Nicole are going to be starring in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell the audience now, like it's a low-budget tsunami thriller. So I was struck waiting in traffic the other day by the ease with which we could CGI out around the trees. You know, as you film, particularly by Stop and Shop, like there's a lot of low-lying foliage. And I started to think like, well, what if instead of the sky, what I saw was a wave? You know, what's the conversation that Nicole and I would be having right now if there were a wave of unknown proportion, you know, coming quickly to hit the Cape? What choices would I make, you know?
Yeah, and thus is there a name for the tsunami thriller film yet?
No, I don't have one.
Okay.
I don't even have a working title. It's a very rough outline. But I had a lot of time on Davisville to think about it.
Yeah, you know, that's where you get those thoughts too.
Well, I mean, the length of those peninsulas would totally inform your choices, you know. In the film, we imagine that we've just dropped the kids off and like, you know, maybe we drop them on different peninsulas. Choices.
Many choices. Kind of like.
Just to be clear, I'm not choosing between which kid. I'm choosing which way to go to them, and I also don't actually have children. So.
Yeah, so there's a little bit less of a moral consequence than it seems from this outline of the movie. But you know, it's all good. But those are one of those things that you think about when you're like, I'm just kind of running in a straight line right now. I feel like that's when I find those weird thoughts that come to me where like once in a while, like you have those thoughts that just like randomly pop into your head, or like you'll just think like my mouth tastes like corn right now.
Yeah.
Or something weird like that.
I was running a very straight section of the Antelope Canyon 50 mile, which is along some power lines, and I had a lot of time to think about the native Navajo land that we were running on, and then also the fact that the power lines run right through it. Yeah. My understanding is it's a bit of a cash generator. Like there's rights paid to the Indians who are on the land, but there are also these enormous high tension wires, you know, running through the desert landscape.
And they look ugly.
Well, they're just very apparent in a place that is not made of the material of telephone wires.
Yeah. It's more like natural beauty than it is
Yeah, so
beauty.
I felt like the course was very specific. It gave you a lot of time to kind of meditate on man's interaction with nature and what we leave behind and who we negotiate with to do it and what the outcome is. Interestingly enough, one of the signs was switched around that point in the race, and I always kind of wonder, like, how do they feel about my being here? I guess that person didn't feel that good.
That person was not
They wanna
feeling
be
it
over
today.
there.
He was like, we sent them off in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean,
Goodbye.
obviously I don't know who did it, but we all followed the footprints. Like, it was totally apparent that the arrow was pointing the wrong way.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Could have been a fellow person on the course, too, of like, hee.
Yeah, so
we like to think possibly of the other runners, but you never know.
That's what I like about the longer runs, is you get in your head about what's going on around you, and I think that's where the deep truths kind of start to reveal themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely of the camp of where I have had a lot, like I've worked through a lot of shit through running.
Right, and during the action of running.
Yeah, when I've been out running. I mean, even the last like couple of weeks, I've just like worked through a lot of things mentally where I'm just like, oh, okay, where I have like little revelations. They don't have to be anything like mind-blowingly big.
Sure.
I'm not going to solve world hunger or anything over here. But if I have like an interpersonal problem that I would like to like process through in my head.
It's great for the interpersonal problems.
Yeah. Or just kind of like, I'm very much so a person who I like to know why people are doing things. And I'm
Right, and when you can't predict that, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, there's certain people I know who I'm just like, I can't relax around them because I never know which version of them I'm gonna get. So
Oh,
I'm
sure.
like,
Yeah.
but you know, that's a Juliana problem and a no one else problem.
No, I think we all have that issue. Like, there are all people in our lives that we don't know how to act around.
Yeah. I mean, like I stand by the fact that it's childhood that fucks you over, and fucks you up. But like, you know what? That's just kind of
Well, it's what happened before.
Yeah.
You know, it could be that there are some very messed up things which are going to happen in a little bit, but we already know about the childhood.
Yeah, that's the things that put you. All the things that have happened before were what have put you in where you are now. And so some of them are largely consequential, some of them are smallly consequential. Sometimes you just gotta like figure out what the path was that got you here. So
in Vermont, I started pushing things further and further. And gradually, I started to come up against these injuries. I noticed one day that I'm only going downhill one way. I'm leading with my right foot every single time. Like, not a little bit, and when it's convenient,
like
it's
a
like
lot.
all the time.
Yeah.
I'm only leading with my right foot.
okay.
So I started to get really curious about that.
Yeah.
And then I have this ultra attempt where I map out from the north end of the Taconic Crest Trail. I'm going to run all the way down to Pittsfield, the south end of this trail.
How far is that?
It's going to be 50 miles because I'm going to do about 18 miles of loops in the mountains around my house.
Oh,
So
okay.
I planned it. There's a 37.5 mile run down the mountain range, and I'm excited to do that, but I also want it to be a 50-mile run.
Yeah.
So I'm adding the 18 miles to make it good and plenty to make the whole distance that.
Okay.
You know, I pack food, I have a pack, I'm not just messing around, but it is self-supported. So I do laps by my house and like refuel one final time, and then I go and I almost make it to like 44.5.
Oh wow.
And then I bail before the last little mountain range.
Why'd you bail?
I was running out of daylight, and that freaked me out. I also had a ride, which I'd prearranged, and the ride had a very specific time limit on, like, the person had made an offer to pick me up, but like only up until a certain point.
Okay.
So it's like, I can run all the way and like figure it out on the other end, or I can call it, you know, call this a learning experience, didn't achieve my goal.
Yeah. Just kind of figure out what's the lesser of two evils right there.
Anyways, I chose to bail, and it made me really curious about what would happen if I actually ran the whole 50 miles.
Yeah. Which you've done now.
Right, but only after working for a year in architecture, living in Boston, struggling to find time to run around a corporate job. You know, like, I worked for a year for an architecture firm in the South End, running business analysis for them. And it was very much a desk job. I was in Microsoft Excel every day. I was answering math problems.
That's such a hard turn from living on a farm up in Vermont
Yeah,
to going to Boston to work a desk job.
Yep.
What was the reason for that?
A friend came up and asked me to do it, and so I came down and pitched his boss on like what I would do for a year in his company, and then we did it.
Yeah. Just knowing you now, Ben.
Well, it's teaching continued. You know, it's very much like, okay, so it's a successful company, right? And they have a need to improve their business systems so that they can spend less time trying to communicate and miscommunicating with each other. So coming in, figuring out what the systems of communication need to be, and then teaching everybody how to communicate or when to communicate or what to communicate about to make it a really efficient, well-moving, well-oiled machine.
I feel like the analytics side of that job fit you perfectly, but the desk part of it.
That was easily the hardest part, was sitting still at a desk from, we had very specific hours, and I had to be there at 8:30 in the morning, which I, frankly, between us, never made.
Also between us, Ben, not surprised.
Yeah, no, it just was never going to be my thing. Which, I was there by like 9, but anyways.
As the person who is like, I know myself extremely well at this point.
Yeah.
I'm 5 minutes late to literally everything.
Corporate structure was hard, and the relative physical monotony of it was an intellectually breathtaking job, and I'm really lucky to have done it, but physically it was disastrous for my health. And so leading that job, as you're experiencing now, you have a lot more time to think and also to run. So that's where I had 2 beers and signed up for the Dicker Johnson.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is the beginning of the modern ultra running era in my life.
Yeah, I feel like this is the Ben that I've been introduced to.
Yeah, is like a variation on this guy who is sitting at his desk in Cambridge outside Harvard Square and thinking to himself like, oh, this is a race near my house. I should just sign up, like click submit, and then scroll down the page to the elevation profile. I'm like, oh. It's going to be a different couple months than I thought.
Yeah, the same person who signed up and ran the Cape Cod Marathon in the week of was like, I should look at the course.
Well, you made a very helpful course video, and so actually I feel like I learned the most through that.
Honestly, most people, it was funny because I had a lot of interactions because Kathy obviously came on this podcast, and Cape Cod Marathon, as you will attest, very flat. Like comparatively speaking to like any other marathon out there, especially an ultramarathon.
That said, I underestimated the hills, and I want to go on the record about that.
Well, I will say, so a lot of people said, thank God I watched that course video because there are rolling hills between Surf Drive and Novska Lighthouse.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people,
that's where I was running with Cam.
Yes, and a lot of people also don't realize that, yes, there is the Falmouth Heights Hill, which if you're running the Falmouth Road Race, because you're running it from Novska towards Falmouth Heights, you take the Church Hill down. They don't realize, like, if you take that bad boy up, oh, it's steep.
That's what got me. That's what got me coming back. I definitely walked from there.
Yeah.
And I was just fortunate that I'd already banked enough miles with Cam that it averaged out to an okay time I was happy with.
Yeah, the year I did the Chowder Challenge, we moved things around on the course a couple of times the last, 5 years. That used to be around mile 20. And so you'd hit the Falmouth Heights Hill twice, and then you'd come back and, like, just to keep you honest, you know, you'd hit the Church Hill around, like, mile 20.
Yeah, it kept me honest. But I was running in some very nice shoes. Courtesy of someone named Byron at Puma.
Yes, Byron. Yeah, he's also the Brooks rep, too. Shout out Byron.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, thank you very much for the shoes.
Yeah, saw him in the coffee line. Surprised me. Didn't recognize him. He's like, he recognized me. I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, the Puma Fast Hour was a lot of fun, particularly when Cam and I were going fast. And that's one of those reasons I don't mind, like, yeah, it was a terrible idea to run 6:40s or whatever in the first
in the middle
half
of
marathon. You know, like, objectively, bad idea. But a great memory that I will treasure forever.
And sometimes you just got to figure out, like, is this bad idea worth it or is it not? It sounded like it was.
I always hear Yoshi in my head from Mario Kart, like, here we go. You know how he said it? He had a very specific way of talking.
Is it Yoshi who says that?
Yeah, I thought it was Yoshi. Is it one of the Mario brothers?
I think it's one of the Mario. I think it's Mario who says that.
Whatever it is.
Who also
whoever
says,
says
I'm
it.
the winner.
Whoever it is who says it, it always plays in my head when I'm about to make a decision like that.
I think it's Luigi, actually, now that I'm remembering correctly.
I wonder if I wouldn't be a better racer if I'd played less Mario Kart as a kid. You know,
I played a lot of Mario Kart as a kid.
Is this actually just a way for me to live out my Mario Kart fantasies as an adult using Strava and my GPS locator?
Do-do-do-do.
Yeah,
Ding,
I think that's what I'm actually living through right now. What are the turtle shells, you know?
Yeah, what are the bombs? Where are the Koopas coming from? I don't know. But...
yeah, I mean, they're metaphorical, but they're there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Trips, hazards like that.
I think...
you know, we all go spinning.
I think there should be, like, a Mario, like, a treadmill run or, like, an AI...
oh, there's definitely a virtual experience coming, for sure.
Yeah, there has to be, like, an AI Mario Kart run where you have to avoid certain things.
Yeah.
Or you could probably just do mushrooms and go outside running and have your friends dress up as the Mario Kart people, because then you really probably think you're on Rainbow Road. and just have like one of your friends dress up as Luigi and be like, oh, and just run out at you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a way to do it. I'd love if someone does that, please hit me up. I want to know or if you end up doing it eventually, Ben, you let me know.
Well, my understanding is we're about to vote on psychedelics here in the state right now.
So
It's
Mario
on the ballot.
Kart Rainbow Road Run could be a real thing.
Yeah, I can't see a lot of folks signing up for the experience of running well under the influence of the mushrooms, but
Well, we'll just find you a nice little path that you can run in circles on, and then me and Nicole and a few other people can dress up as Mario characters, and we'll just kind of throw things at you.
This race is already happening. It's called Ghost Train. It's in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, Tasha just ran it. Yeah.
No comment on the mushrooms, but I've heard it's a great race.
She had a good time. I think she ran 60 miles. So shout out Tasha, one of our local runners, who did a great job. But okay, as usual, we've derailed again. But so you start running more organized ultras. You come out of Boston, you quit your job there. And
Well, I run Jigger Johnson, and it doesn't go as badly as I feared.
Okay.
I actually have a really good time. I go faster than I thought I could, and place just well enough to start the feeling in the back of your head,
I could do better.
yeah, what if I took this seriously?
Yeah. And so Jigger Johnson on paper is how many miles? Is it 50?
It is billed as a 50-ish mile event.
50-ish mile. Okay. I just didn't know what the paper reporting was on the mileage.
I think we're all clear that just the paper reporting probably doesn't accurately reflect the experience.
I know, but if the people, whatever they are saying,
Look, I mean, it's
if you go on the
serious
website,
climbs. It's 5 serious climbs, and I think that the race is really won or lost in the space between them because they're unevenly spaced.
okay,
They're all 4,000 footers, give or take a little bit. And
it's a lot of climbing.
it's a lot of climbing, but it's also a manageable amount. If you can exert yourself for 90 minutes, you can definitely climb one of these mountains. And if you can race it in 60, that's, pretty good. So you have all these 5 60-minute efforts, and then it's like, well, what were the other 17 hours like? That was the in-between time.
Yeah, the job.
The folks who do really good run. They're
run
broken
between the mountains
Yep.
essentially.
It's 5 climbs and a sprint between them. But that's a very particular mindset,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I learned I didn't possess this year. It actually took me 2 hours longer knowing the course.
I will also say for anyone who's watching or listening to this podcast, I did some research on the Jigger Johnson race after you ran it. And multiple people have billed this as the hardest ultramarathon on the East Coast.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
So for just the flippancy that Ben is talking about this in, and he's like, it's fine, it's easy, and then it's just I don't know if it's easy, but
It's not easy, and it definitely pushes me to my own physical limits, physically and mentally.
That's good though.
Yeah, I think, finding limits is maybe what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, I don't think it's what you're trying to do now. From what you're saying, it sounds like you were always trying to do that.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm increasingly finding them. I mean, running out of salt in Pittsfield, for instance, is a good example of well, that's a boundary.
Yeah, well, and I think for you and for most people who are runners, you find those boundaries, and it doesn't mean the end to anything.
No.
It just means that you learned something, and that maybe either 1, we try and respect those boundaries, or 2, we try and push those boundaries a little bit further.
Yeah, and salt is obviously the example of the boundary that I'm going to push.
Yeah, that's one that we respect. That's a non-negotiable.
Well, it's a non-negotiable, but it's also something where I'm going to push past it by just doing it next time. I'm going to create a routine which gets me past this problem, which I've now faced. And knowing the problem's there, create the routine, done.
Yeah,
I hope.
Yeah, the non-negotiable is not intaking enough salt. The thing that you can push past is how far you went.
Sure.
So you can do that. We can abide by the non-negotiable to push the negotiable thing further along the path, so you can run farther next time.
Yep.
And just kill
and
it
hopefully
out there.
faster, which is the fun thing I was doing in that race up until that moment, was running a little faster than I'd pushed it in the past.
Yeah, you said were you in first place at some point?
I led for a long time, and then a guy passed me, and then another guy, and then at that point, I was not going to do another lap. So.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer that I don't get to know, but also I'll definitely go back next year. We had a great time in Pittsfield. We went to this place, the Dream Away Lodge, which if you're in the area is the best place.
Oh, okay.
It's for food and music, and I think you can look up,
Oh, okay.
when stuff's playing there, but it's great local music, phenomenal local food, and the ambiance is next level.
Okay. Noted. I don't know the next time I'm going to be in Pittsburgh, but
Pittsfield.
Pittsfield.
Pittsburgh's lovely too.
Oh, like one of the two, you know? You never know.
Yep, Pittsburgh's phenomenal. The people are great.
And Pittsfield is just as nice.
Very different, but also
Different
nice.
vibe, but also a nice time. So you ran Jigga Johnson that one time,
Yeah.
the first time, and then at what point did you move down the Cape?
I stopped running again a little bit because I have this job in a wood shop that is like, it's very far from where I'm living, so I have to commute for a long time. So I don't have much time to run like that fall.
Yeah.
The Jigga Johnson race is in July. No, it's in August that year.
Okay.
It's in July this year.
Okay.
And then I start working for this guy up in Newburyport doing finished sanding. So I'm
Okay.
like standing all day. It's more like the milking job that I had for the farm.
Yeah, it's a little bit more physical than some of the other jobs you've had more recently, or previously too.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like definitely more in the architecture firm and definitely more in the shoe store in town. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So you're doing the sanding job. And
Yeah, and through all of this have been developing an interest in metalworking, like specifically fine jewelry. And so I'm slowly over years teaching myself how to work with precious metals. And that's going on in like the background. I do owe you a ring, the Shoe Monster
Shoe Monster
collaboration.
ring.
Yeah, I feel like I've been sidetracked by my perfectionism because I have this very specific idea for like how I want it to feel. You know how some of the bezels of like sport watches are twistable?
Yeah.
I want it to feel like that kind of tight mechanical motion. So in my head, I imagine it being used as kind of a counter, like how many laps have I run?
Oh, that's a good idea. And have that kind of like clicking.
Well, but this
Like
is an example.
Like satisfying. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Where you're kind of like, you're wanting to touch it because it's such a nice feeling.
Oh yeah, I've had one of those watches before where I'm just like,
Yeah, but this is a great example of like, okay, Ben, that's a great idea, but like,
how are you going to execute
yeah,
that?
how are you going to do the thing? And I think I can get totally hung up on like the structure of the good idea and thinking through all the angles of the good idea. And in fact, if I just did the good idea, like,
It could probably work out just as good.
and we'd have the thing then.
This is one of those moments where we chuck it in the bucket bin,
And just do the
and
thing.
we just do the thing. We just do the thing
Yep. So looking forward to coming to you soon with that.
with my ring.
Yeah, the Shoe Monster ring. And for the audience, the idea here is that if you haven't seen Juliana's shoes, stop and ask her while she's running.
I'll show them off to you.
Well, something about your foot strike results in the shoes being shredded on like the outside.
On the outside.
You know, the outside of both feet pretty symmetrically, and you go through shoes maybe like twice the rate.
Probably, I would say, yeah. A shoe, if you grade a shoe, depending on the material that it's made out of, that FF Blessed Eco shit from ASICS is like
Well, I
particularly
don't have a comment about
squishy.
that, but I do notice
will.
that you destroyed the outer edge of that shoe. And in fact, it's I think structurally, it was a long time ago that shoe probably went.
Oh yeah, and you can see the sides compressing in as well too. If you look at it, they're fully just like squished and compressed in. But yeah, so I am a shoe. We'll talk about this on this podcast at some point. How my feet just eat shoes for breakfast. But Ben
Of
has
which my
been-
understanding is the Puma's been a long surviving member of your shoe fleet.
Yeah, the Puma DV8 too. Can't speak for the 3 yet, but you know I'm sure it's just as durable.
The 3 is nice, and you know what I've obviously done is taken it on the trail and seen how it holds up.
Yeah.
I love the 2 for the trail, which
Yeah.
was I realized a dark horse candidate, but it's pretty nice. I think the grip is so sticky that even though the shape is not trail, it's fine.
Yeah. No. Anytime like we've gone like light trail running, Juliana trail running, I've taken the Puma DV8s and they've been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no complaints.
And that's actually what I wore at Jigga Johnson this year for the first 30 miles. Was
Yeah,
the
and then-
Puma DV8 too.
And then what was your second choice?
It was an ASICS Kayano 31.
Yeah.
It was like finishing the race on a Tempur-Pedic mattress.
Notoriously, in no capacity, a trail shoe.
Nor am I someone who typically wears supportive shoes. Like
Yeah.
I'm not someone for the dual density foams. I wear neutral shoes. I supinate. And it was purely an exercise. And like,
Can I do it?
as you say, chuck it in the bucket.
Chuck it in the bucket.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I put it. And it was actually a great way to finish the race because the race ends coming down Mount Tecumseh with like these stairs. They're just monotonous. They're long. I've seen people run them at like a 6:30 pace. I'm not
That's
there.
terrifying.
So for me, at the end of the race, the experience is like bam, 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 all the way down.
Yeah.
But with the ASICS on, no problems.
You got a big old chunky platform that you squish
I
it
had this
through.
big pillowy shoe, and again with the rubber, the ASICS grip is good enough that like I didn't slip around that much.
Yeah.
I went down once in both shoes, but neither time was like
detrimental.
It was Peastone with the Pumas. Like I entered a chute going down a boulder at speed and like predictably fell backwards and then
Which
proceeded to keep
in
going.
any shoe.
Right. I dodged it the year before in the Solomon Speed Cross 6, which was a great choice. It was a really good choice.
Okay.
Like a 4 out of 5 stars choice.
Okay, 4 to 5 stars.
And it was so grippy that at that moment I didn't fall, which is why I didn't have a memory of falling, which is why I was running so fast at that point.
Okay. So the Solomons did too good of a job. Well, not too good of a job, but
Yeah,
very good
exactly.
job.
No, and that's the problem I start getting into with gear is that the gear does too good a job and protects me from the realization that I would have had if I didn't have the gear. You know, you can take enough water to get yourself into some serious trouble.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of gear out there too. I don't think people realize just like how much there is and what a variety there is. And I feel like that's a conversation that we can have at another time too.
Sure.
With newer runners, is they're just like, what shoe should I wear?
Which shoe do you choose to use?
What
and
shoe
why?
do you choose to use? And it's not quite as easy as, oh, every runner should be wearing this shoe.
Sure.
Or like, as the connoisseur, Ben, I would say, of wearing a shoe for its unintended purpose.
Yeah, maximizing its unintended gifts. Exactly.
Wearing a trail shoe in a store, wearing a road shoe on the trail.
Yeah, you're referring, of course, to the 2 months I spent in the Brooks Cascadia 18, walking around the carpet of the Run House in Falmouth. I'm actually back to using that as a store shoe after racing in it in Pittsfield.
Oh, okay.
It was phenomenal. I'm also glad that I broke it in a little bit because I think it does have a rather stiff sole.
I mean, I would think it has a rather stiff sole, but I don't usually run in shoes. I'm finding that I kind of like the stiffer, like firmer, snappier shoes.
I think there's a lot to say for them,
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover there with trail shoes, too.
Yeah, I need to start looking into some trail shoes because I'm pretty seriously thinking about running that 30 miler in the spring. So
yeah, both
I'd
the
be flirting
Deviate and the
with it.
Cascadia have that nice little half plate. One's plastic, one's carbon, but
I found out I have a pair of Rickons in my closet that I've never worn.
Oh, nice.
I might try those.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Nothing like a closet shop.
Yeah, I went closet shopping the other day. I was like, wow. I don't know why I have them, but they're my size and they've never been used. And I said,
That's the experience I had, except I didn't find what I was looking for. I went closet shopping, but it wasn't there.
Well, I mean, last time when you were like kind of cleaning things with your mom, you found me a really nice camera stand. That was a nice
That's true.
time.
Yeah, that came free with a Panasonic camera that I got a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, it's very nice. We used it for the Cape Cod Marathon live stream.
It's awesome.
It
was
was
like a
great.
Circuit City 2-for-1 or something.
That was great. I have it at my house now. It's a nice time. So, but you did Jacob Johnson once. You're experimenting with stuff. You moved down the Cape.
Well, we moved to Arizona first.
Oh, okay.
Nicole gets that job working for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I go out with her to write. And I spend that time doing absolutely nothing but like writing, running, and eating, and I'm sleeping also.
You have your own book, correct? Or do you just have your friend's book that you've ghosted?
No, we have so far the one that I published with Eric Wilson, which is Nothing Happens Overnight.
Yeah.
I edited that book, so it's all his words, but the editing was extensive. So rearranging all the parts, getting it to flow as a narrative.
Yeah.
That's all work that I did on that book.
Yeah. So I would call you more of a secondary author.
On that work, yeah. No, this would be more me sitting down and writing my own fiction. I just felt like I had a lot of experiences from the workplace where I was never going to talk about these things in actuality. Like, I don't want to name names. I don't want to say what happened where. But I did learn lessons from it, and I want to share that in a narrative form.
Is this book published?
No, not yet. I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, okay.
That's what's going on right now. So, like, I work in the store during the day.
Yeah.
And then I split my time. Gold on the one hand, and then writing on the other. It's been phenomenal. I mean, I'm definitely someone who does very well with like hunkering down and just hitting the routine for day after day after day.
Yeah.
So we spend 10 weeks out in Scottsdale, and I get to do just that. Nicole goes to work in the morning. I have the house to myself. I write. I never hit my goal with word count.
Yeah.
But writing is the operation of the morning, and then I go running, and like running around Scottsdale is just beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was great training.
Do you have like a time when you want to finish your book, or like how far along are you on your book right now?
So I have the overall structure, like the narrative plot, I feel very good about. There are sections within it where I know roughly what happens, but I haven't completed like the dialogue or
Actualized everything quite yet.
Yeah, I feel like I've spent a lot of time. Nicole calls this incubating, right? Like I have the thing, I know how it all fits together, and now I'm incubating on each of these 3 parts.
And you have to take action on one of them at some point.
Yeah, I think it's also been great to like let time pass.
Yeah, well, I mean, the book is really, it sounds like to me, only on a time frame if you put it on one.
Sure. What struck me
about
publishing Eric's book, we went through Amazon and it was virtually painless.
Yeah.
And he had copies in his hand relatively soon afterwards. And for reference, this is a disabled individual who's telling his story. He narrated it to me and I wrote it down, basically, is what happened here. But he, like us, has severe ADHD. And so he narrated it to me in this incredible order where, like, it came out like an onion. And so what I was left with was like these layers. And it's like, well, you know, I sat down with him every week for a year, and like not everybody's going to go through that. So there had to be some condensing and some cutting and some pasting.
Yeah.
But they're all his words, and it's a pretty cool story.
I need to read that. You sent it to me a while back, and I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's called Nothing Happens Overnight. It's by Eric Wilson. And yeah, it's just a story of growing up in North Adams with his disability is that part of his brain is dead. It's just not functional.
Oh, okay.
And so in particular, it's the part of his brain that helps us cycle down from anxiety. So when he experiences anxiety, it's like level 10, and it's for days.
Wow.
So
that's debilitating.
It definitely has been. But he's also overcome it. And I think one of the things I appreciated about listening to him tell his story was the linear growth path that he views as, like, it's all about your mindset, and how you view your life.
Yeah.
For him, his life has been every day is better than the last.
That's a good mindset to have, I feel like.
You know, he definitely has rough days, but on the other side of that, I think he'd say he learned and loved the people around him.
You can only run the mile you're in.
Yeah, very much an example of that in practice.
Yeah, I stand behind it. I need to read his book then, because I feel like I'm in the same zone where I'm just like each day, and I've said this like a million times, and you know this, but like my only goal every day is to be more myself every day.
Sure.
And like it doesn't matter if it's like a big step in that direction or like a tiny little step. Like I just want to. That's all I want. You know, just like be more authentically myself.
Yeah, the journey of self-actualization, right?
Yeah.
That's how I came into the writing process, was wanting to tell these stories and just feeling like, well, you know, it's only going to happen if I write the words down. Yeah. And if I'm going to write them down, I might as well protect the anonymity of the people I'm talking about while making it interesting for a reader to. Yeah. Because I read these like consulting books, right? And like I'm very into like the business economics lit, and they are so dry.
Yeah, that's why I will never touch that stuff. It's so dry.
So I was aware that like those books have a limited audience with niche interests, myself included. But for a broader audience, if I was going to make these issues known, then I needed, like for instance, there's a moment where a character is looking at his paychecks and he realizes that every month, because he's paid hourly and he gets better at the job, he's being paid less and less over time. Yeah, I mean, that's a real experience I've had.
That a lot of people have been in that situation before too. The harder you work, the more stuff they give you, the less, and like.
Yeah, but what strikes me about that moment is that not a lot of people who pay wages have had that realization.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So I needed a way to introduce that idea without like calling people out. Like this is not about me calling out community members and saying, you know, you did that thing to me a long time ago. It's about you
identifying like a situation that's happening.
Like societal. Yeah. It's all across the board.
Yeah, and having people who either have not like lived that situation realize like, oh, this is a lived experience of another human, or has someone who has lived that experience be like, oh, I'm not alone.
Right. So what I've taken in this book is my own lived experience across all these different industries that I've worked in relatively rapid succession. Distilled out.
You've had a lot of jobs, Ben.
Distilled out some of the more like salient moments and made a narrative out of it. That's 100% what's going on here.
My only thought in my head after you said that was, oh boy, Ben has got that ADHD personality of like having like 50 million jobs like back to back to back to back to back to back to back.
I think surrendering to it increasingly has been my approach of just saying like, this is not going to make sense to anybody else around me, but if you find people who trust you, then they'll just let you be.
Yeah. And I'm in that same mindset too, where like right now where I'm kind of looking into doing more like social media ventures. So if you want some social media management, you hit me up, my friends.
Yeah, you'd be great at it.
but it's different projects every day. It's being told like, hey, go do this, go do that. And just within the context of like one title, being able to have 50 million titles. Like even if you just go like look at my website, it says like all these different things that I do that are completely different skill sets. But just being able to do that, and I think that's the same for you too, just being able to like you go to the run house and you do your job there. You like do your
which is the 40 other things that we do throughout the day. Like we don't just sit there and talk about shoes like we're shipping. We are working on our own systems. We're chatting with each other about our opinions about shoes.
Yeah, as you should be, you know. That's part of the job there too. But and then you go home and you can like you have Finn and things like that and like your house
Nicole,
stuff and you have Nicole. And for anyone who's watching or listening, Nicole is the first guest we had on here. That's Ben's fiance, Nicole.
And to bring things full circle, we're getting married this spring at Cricket Creek Farm.
Yeah, that's gonna be super exciting.
I'm stoked.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
we've got a great DJ and band. It's going to be phenomenal weather, and the dandelions will be blooming.
Ah, okay. You've already pre-ordered the weather.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. We did that for the Cape Cod Marathon next year already,
Probably moody, maybe cool. I would be prepared for like mid-50s to mid-60s.
Okay. So moody cool, but like also just like a fun, funky time.
Yeah, we've tried to use local things from close by. So obviously all the food will be from the farm or farms nearby.
Cheese.
Some of my old colleagues will make appearances. We hope, fingers crossed, as our chef or caterer, and then again in the band and DJ. And then there will definitely be some cows around that I have. I can't guarantee Rhubarb's still there, but
oh no, I wanted to dance with Rhubarb now.
You are always dancing with Rhubarb because she's coming for you. You are dancing out of her way constantly. Yeah.
And this is one of the things that Juliana will make a note of a clip for social media.
Oh, please.
When she's editing.
Yeah.
But so here we are now, Ben. You live in Falmouth.
Yeah.
You are here because Nicole has a family house here, correct?
Yeah, that's 100% why, she also loves the town. I had no experience with it. I moved here for love. I had like no preconception of what this town was going to be like or what. Or what we were going to do here. So it's all been a nice surprise. Yeah.
I mean, two unfortunate things for you. One, we don't have that many like big hills or like mini mountains. And the second one is that I live here. So now you have to deal with me yelling at you.
Yeah, which has been fine so far. And I have a job which has me going up and down stairs constantly while being paid by the time that I'm there. So I view it as like a gym workout. I go in and people like interrupt me with questions about what shoes they should buy or what gear they should wear. But I was working out.
Yeah, you're like, I will stop and help you, but
rubber bands, stretching, like some mild yoga. I would not be surprised to find me in like some downward dog back in like the men's pants section. I'm just around, like.
I'm just around.
Well, because in Arizona we noticed that like I had taken this to a level, or I'd taken running to a level where I was able to negotiate like hazardous situations or, situations where you're planning complex routes, that kind of thing. In such a way that I was in danger of endangering the people around me. Like if somebody came with me to do this, and my pacer fell pretty badly in the first Jigger Johnson, which led me not to run with pacers after that. It can be kind of scary to like bring your friends into this thing you're excited about, and then through no fault of their own, like they're in a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any distance above the half marathon, honestly, is kind of like that too. I don't like, if I'm going to run with someone for a full marathon, unless like by proxy, because you know how I am, like I'll go and I'll make friends with like a tree. I'll make friends with a rock. Like I go and I run like a marathon or a race. So even in Japan, I found people who speak English to speak to and chat with. But like, unless you're someone I know who has run a full marathon or whatever the distance is that we're going before, I don't want to arrange to run a race with you.
Sure. It's always caution.
Yeah, especially if it's a full marathon. I don't want to be that
There's so many distractions and even just the wish to like excel in the eyes of the other, I think can totally drive someone into distraction.
Yeah, and especially when it's like a really like visually and just like physically challenging course when you're up in up in the mountains. I can totally imagine you were just like, I know how to do like this little like maneuver when I go up the rocks, and the person behind you is like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing. I don't know.
There's a moment in the race on Mount Osceola where you have to shift your weight forward and you go from running or walking upwards to crawling.
Yeah.
And it's a subtle 5-degree shift, but I sat there and stared at it for 15 minutes this time because I just couldn't remember what to do. You're like looking at the trail and it goes up so steeply that you begin to kind of curve back on yourself and you lose all track of like gravity, which way's up. But the trick is get it down on your hands and just scamper. So next time.
Yeah, you know for next time. That's really all that matters.
I'm excited to see how I can do in this race next time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a nice time.
I'm much more focused on the race between the mountains now. You know, at first you look at the mountains and they're overwhelming and it's like, how do I break these down? Now I look at the space in between, like, okay, when I get down from the mountain, it's not going to be what I want to do to go run.
Yeah, it's a mentality. I feel like any race distance that you run, especially if there's like different terrains that you're navigating, or that the course is just like vastly different on different parts.
That's what was great about doing it a second time, though, was like those mentally taxing moments of being really lost in the woods are vanishing because you've got your data from the year before on the map. You can look at it, and you've just been through it. You know.
Yeah, and you have a strategy.
Yep.
You troubleshooted it the first time.
Hancock Notch.
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
I think that's the one. We should double check that, but it's
I
brutal.
have not a clue in the world.
Well, it's before the last two mountains, and you like, you know, it gets dark at some point while you're in this like little crevasse.
The crevasse of darkness.
Yeah, that's what it was like the first time. And then the trail goes out, and like the trail just vanishes. It's like there are boulders which are continuous, but you have to like weave across them in an S curve, and now there are things growing up between the boulders which weren't there before.
Yeah, see, this is why I have not forayed into like your level of ultra running yet, because this just feels like outside of my breadth of what I'm like capable of at the current moment. We could get there.
I never imagined I would get to a point in an unmarked race where the trail disappeared. Like, I didn't sign up for that, but when it happens, what are you going to do? Like, you're in a race where they drop you off furthest from the finish line, which is where you parked, and you run back to your car. So like, if you give up, it will take longer to get home. The fastest way is just to suck it up and like keep going forward, because it's virtually the same as like officially dropping out of the race and like going around and all that.
Yeah, so you might as well just not drop out.
You might as well just keep going.
You might as well just keep going. I mean, I've had a lot of those thoughts too, especially the like, oh, I'm closer to the finish line than the starting line than I am the finish line, so we just keep going, no matter how much pain you're in.
It's all the same conversation from my first day of preseason when the kids are yelling, "You're cut." Like, those are the voices in the head. Nothing has changed, but I feel like we've grown a lot.
I feel like it would be quite a tragedy and quite a problem if you had not grown past like middle school version of Ben.
Oh yeah, brutal.
that would be an issue.
Yeah.
But you definitely, I feel like you're someone, and I know that you're someone who just learns as they go.
Yeah.
And you're always collecting new data.
Yep.
Very Ravenclaw.
That's the dream.
Very
That's
Ravenclaw.
the dream.
But it definitely is something that, I don't know, I kind of admire about you a little bit.
Thanks very much.
It's a good thing to just like, and I know it makes me laugh when I get the from you, because I know that's just your brain collecting data.
Yeah, I registered it.
Yeah, just like,
Well, I appreciate how open you are and how you get me outside of my bubble or underneath my rock, you know, out from underneath my rock to talk about the things that are going on around me.
Yeah.
No, it's helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we all know that I'm a verbal processor, and that's why I kind of like having a podcast. And I feel like your book that you're getting out there is my version of that is this podcast. This is something I've marinated on for a good 7 years. And really just wanted, like, ever since I moved down here to Falmouth and got involved with the running community, I've wanted to start this podcast.
It's cool that we have these facilities. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, the Falmouth Community TV people, shout out. It's a great community resource.
This is a really professional setup. I mean, we just walked in off the street. Like, I ran here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I have a towel down, but, like,
yeah,
I was sweating a moment ago.
Yeah, you should see the other studio they have. Kurt can probably show
This isn't even the nice one?
This is Studio B, I think. I think
man.
Studio A has a full kitchen and a full, like, green screen that we can use.
It's too much.
Oh, it's a fun time.
I'm a Studio B. That's more my jam.
Yeah, it's more like the little bit lower key, like studio.
Yeah.
But
pressure.
it's nice to like be able to like follow that passion and be able to just have that thing that you're just like, yeah, I want to express all the feelings and things that I've had over the years.
And I'm lucky to be supported in that. You know, you've mentioned Finn at several points, but Nicole is a huge part of the stability with which I'm able to encounter the world around me.
Yeah.
Finn is a huge part of the instability, which she constantly rocks my
Finn the dog.
expectations.
Yeah, Finn is a wild doggy.
Well, he's a year old. You know, he's a Greyhound Lab mix. He's got more energy than I do, certainly.
The amount that dog like runs, and when I say run, like we mean like run, like 7:30 to like 8-minute mile pace, probably.
Yep.
Run
For miles.
Yeah, like is wild to me.
Well, he does nothing but eat like optimal food, sleep, hydrate, and run. He drinks no alcohol. Like he uses no recreational drugs.
Yeah, he's not
He
eating
keeps
fast
the
food or
perfect
anything.
schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a good like routine going.
So he's inspiring of like, well, man, if you got out of your own way, like what are all the things you could do?
Well, and just think about the support crew that he has. He has a really great support crew.
Right,
too.
and then you look back and he's pooping in the trail, you know? And it's just like, oh, yeah, you're a dog.
Oh, wait, this is not another human.
This is
a
not
dog.
a scientific experiment in my running abilities. Like, you're a dog and I'm walking with you.
I'm very interested to see how Finn's personality evolves as he gets a little bit older.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that I've had my dog Myrtle almost 5 years now.
Yeah,
and
it's
just
cool to
thinking
watch them
back.
age.
Yeah, just thinking back to where she was when we first like were getting to know each other and how she is with me now. And also how her interactions with other people besides me have changed. It's definitely a really cool evolution to watch.
Every dog relationship has something to teach you about the world.
Oh, yeah. And also, the more time Myrtle and I spend together, the more I'm like, yeah, we're the same thing. You and I are the same being.
Yeah, you grow together too. I mean, over time, you get more and more maybe like or unlike your pets.
I think we're both just very much the same, and like we're very excited to see people. She like sees people, she's like, ah, and I see people, I'm like, ah. So it's just kind of like the same vibe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, whatever's natural.
And we're both like goofy, ditzy people who just like kind of like bumbling around, be like, boop, 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 boop. So you know, that's just kind of how it is. But okay, I feel like we probably reached the
we've
crest.
come full course. Like this is it.
We're at the end here, Ben.
We're the middle.
Or the middle.
We're here in the middle.
Here we are, in the middle of the table, of the TV screen, of your TV screen, if you're watching this from home or YouTube. But is there anything else you want to like leave with the listeners / viewers? Would you like to leave like a little bit of wisdom on their plate? Would you like to leave them with like just like a dumb joke? Is there anything you'd like to just use as a send off?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that running got a lot more enjoyable when I stopped running out of aggression and started running out of curiosity.
I think
I would
that's
encourage anyone to approach movement with the same curious openness.
good. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave things. Ben.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. And thank you to anyone who watched this show. And don't forget to like and subscribe on your platform of choice. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at runnahpod. And you can leave us an email at runnahpod@gmail.com. If you have any questions, queries, anything for Mr. Bejamneeeeeen.
Please don't email me.
No, they'll email me.
Yeah, they can email you. Tell me about their emails.
They'll email you, and then
I don't want to email.
then I will let you know if there's anything else.
I don't want to ever email again. Ever.
I think Jack and I had this conversation on the last podcast. I think I have 7 or 8 emails, honestly, that I moderate currently. I'm just like, but this is why I'm the one who's kind of dipping into social media management, and you're the one who's dipping into solo book writing.
Yes.
So
yes, it is a great match for my personality.
yeah, and I like what I'm doing too. And people's feedback from the Cape Cod Marathon has only enforced that even more into my psyche. So, but thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Runnah. And then, thank you for listening to this episode of Runnah. This podcast is edited, hosted, and produced by me, Juliana Coughlin. Brought to you in part by the Falmouth Running Club and the Falmouth Community TV station. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram and on TikTok at runnahpod, and you can send us an email at runnahpod@gmail.com. And our original theme music was brought to you by the one and the only wonderful Jeffrey Hutton. And keep up the great work. I'm proud of you. Only had 3 guests and you're our 4th, so congratulations, my friend.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Happy to have you, Ben. The number of times I've gone back and watched that video because I've been like updating something on our social media, and I've seen it there, and I've just clicked on it because I want to, and just laughed out loud.
Yeah, I mean, I told you my one regret is not running over and giving you a high five. It actually feels a lot like the 3.
Gosh, I need to breathe. And that's what happens with Julianne. When my nose gets kind of stuffy for the allergies, and I start like not breathing out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah, sure plug for air filters in the studio.
yeah, that's right. Kurt, get some air filters in here.
Can I take a drink from this?
Yeah, you
on
can take a
camera?
drink. Yeah. Ben is now drinking from his water bottle. Please observe Ben hydrating. Ben is the king of hydration over here.